Steph, after a season like that and a game like that, what did you feel was important to say to your team right after it ended?
Just how proud I am of them. You know, they have been an absolute joy to coach. It's an incredible group of women, an incredibly connected group. They're a great example to everybody.
What do you call a team that loses 6 core players to injury, sees its star guard rush to the hospital, watches its all-star center foul out on calls that left fans stunned, yet still manages to take the reigning 2-time champions to the very edge of elimination? That was the 2025 Indiana Fever. The final score may have gone to the Las Vegas Aces, but what came after told a different story. Head coach Stephanie White's post-game words didn't just capture the fight her team showed, they captured the true win. Today we're diving into one of the most unforgettable playoff clashes in WNBA history and why White's message could become the foundation of the Fever's future. Drop a comment and let us know how proud you are of this team.
It means to just put one foot in front of the other, to persevere, to welcome people into the fold, to not give in to circumstance, to lead with grace and dignity, to sacrifice for a greater good and a common good. I'm so thankful to coach these women, and I'm just thankful for this experience with them.
How does a season that looked destined to fall apart under pressure instead turn into one fans will never forget? For the Indiana Fever, 2025 started with hope and excitement, but it quickly turned into a battle just to stay alive. When Caitlin Clark went down in mid-July with a right groin injury, it felt like everything changed. Soon after, Sydney Colson tore her ACL, Aari McDonald suffered a foot injury, Sophie Cunningham damaged her MCL, and Chloe Bibby hurt her knee. Add in Damiris Dantas missing time with a concussion, and suddenly a roster once full of potential was reduced to its bare bones. On paper, it looked like the perfect setup for another disappointing year and an early playoff exit, but the Fever weren't ready to fold.
We talked about resiliency with this team all season long, but tonight it felt like that wasn't a strong enough word. Have you been a part of a game like that and just it felt like everyone laid it all out there?
I feel like there's so many games that we've had this year where that's happened. You know, where you lay it on the line. And you know, I appreciate what O said, because as coaches, we talk about this all the time. Like, this group continued to allow us as coaches to push them further, harder, to move the bar, to raise the bar.
The challenges went far beyond missing a few stars. The Fever didn't just lose their top talent, they lost their depth. Injuries piled up so quickly that the team was forced to turn to hardship contracts just to keep a full roster. That meant new players being thrown into the fire mid-season, trying to grasp the system on the fly, and immediately being counted on for major minutes. For most teams, that kind of chaos would slam the door shut on any playoff hopes. But against all odds, Indiana refused to let it break them.
In sport, there's some resistance to that, and there isn't with this group. There wasn't with this group. And because of that, you know, and because of their connectedness, they're able to accomplish things that some of y'all didn't think that they're capable of accomplishing. But nobody in our locker room had any doubt. And in our huddles, and we kept talking about it, that we're ready for these moments. And
a huge source of Indiana's stability came from head coach Stephanie White. Her voice never wavered. While critics and commentators had already counted the Fever out, she doubled down on one message: resilience. She reminded her players daily to keep moving forward, step by step. Her emphasis on leading with grace and dignity, while never giving in to adversity, became the defining thread of their season. It wasn't just about surviving without Caitlin Clark, Sophie Cunningham, or Aari McDonald. It was about setting a standard, one that applied no matter who was on the floor wearing that jersey.
Rosters change from year to year. You'll never have the same group. What's that feeling when you walk out of here knowing this is something you'll be talking about for years?
I think the first word that comes to mind is just gratitude. I mean, I've experienced some special teams in this league, in this organization, but collectively, this group has been at the top. So I'm extremely grateful for every single one of them.
That belief showed itself during the Commissioner's Cup when the Fever shocked the Minnesota Lynx despite barely having enough healthy bodies to run a normal rotation. The upset stood out, not just because of the win, but because it proved this team trusted one another even in impossible situations. Experts brushed it aside, certain Indiana couldn't sustain it. Fans outside of Indianapolis mocked the idea of a playoff run, but every dismissal only fueled the Fever's determination to prove they were far more than placeholders. By the time the postseason arrived, Indiana carried one of the most dangerous mindsets in sports, playing with nothing to lose and everything to gain. They weren't supposed to be there, and that freedom made them fearless. That edge took them all the way to the brink of eliminating a dynasty. Pushing Las Vegas to a 5th and deciding game wasn't about luck. It was the product of months of being disrespected and doubted. But if the regular season built their backbone, the ultimate test came in one of the wildest elimination games the WNBA has ever seen.
In the league, but what these women accomplished together, I mean, it's a special story. It's a special story, and I hope one day it's told. But I'm so proud and so grateful.
What do you call it when absolutely everything that can go wrong in a single game actually does? That was the reality of Game 5 in Las Vegas. The pressure couldn't have been higher. Indiana stood one win away from shocking the entire league. The Aces were fighting to keep their dynasty alive, staring straight at elimination. This wasn't just another playoff matchup. It was the ultimate test. A chance to see if Indiana's underdog run was real, or if the dream would finally come crashing down.
Can't hit the mid-range. Mitchell pursues the board. Another chance for Indiana. That's been a theme in the early going. Mitchell, a 3 is good. More second chance points.
From the opening tip, it felt like Indiana was fighting uphill. Already shorthanded, missing key pieces in their rotation, they had to lean on players who weren't even expected to log big minutes on this stage. Still, they poured everything they had into the game. Then came the first crushing blow. Kelsey Mitchell, the heartbeat of their backcourt and their most reliable scorer, collapsed to the floor. Moments later, she was rushed to the hospital with severe cramps. It was a frightening scene for everyone watching. Most teams would have folded after losing that kind of offensive weapon, but Indiana didn't.
They're going to roll back away the stretcher, but Kelsey Mitchell is going to be helped back towards the locker rooms as Melissa Smith, her former teammate, and then a bevy of the Aces come around to show their respect for Kelsey Mitchell and the remarkable season that she has had, which may have just ended right there.
At the same time, Aaliyah Boston wasn't just battling the Aces, she was battling the whistle. From the moment she stepped on the floor, questionable calls piled up, putting her in foul trouble almost instantly. Every rebound, every drive to the rim felt like it came with the risk of another whistle blowing. Meanwhile, on the other end, Indiana players were getting bumped, shoved, and knocked around with no calls at all. The frustration was obvious. You could see it etched across the Fever's faces and hear it boiling over from the crowd.
Ball goes up. Aaliyah Boston.
I don't think that's a foul.
But instead of falling apart, Indiana adapted. That's when the matchup spiraled into one of the wildest and most hotly debated games the WNBA has seen all year. On the other side, Las Vegas leaned heavily on its stars. Aja Wilson was her dominant self, coming up with clutch buckets every time the Fever threatened to swing momentum. Jackie Young kept attacking the rim, bearing tough shots, and proving once again why this Aces squad is considered a dynasty. Every time it looked like Indiana might steal the game, those two had the answer.
Fire. She's our battery. She's moving great, and she will drive us, and that's been true so far.
Thank you, Hal. Sims, pull-up jumper, she got it.
But Indiana had its own heroes. Odyssey Sims delivered one of the toughest performances you'll ever see in a playoff elimination game, dropping 27 points when her team needed it most. And it wasn't just the total, it was the timing. Every time the Fever's offense stalled, Sims found a way to spark life. Whether it was pulling up for a mid-range jumper or attacking the rim with fearless drives, she kept Indiana's season alive possession after possession.
Las Vegas run. They have their largest lead of the quarter. Boston finds Turner. Turner didn't want to shoot it. Petty will, and knock it down. The stats have not been gaudy, but the decision-making has been excellent tonight from Greg.
Yes.
Petty They need it. They've got it. Time.
Lexi Hull may not always be the loudest name on the floor, but in this game, she made the kind of plays that defined team basketball. She fought for rebounds in traffic, slid over to cut off driving lanes, and came up with a steal that turned into a fast break bucket. They weren't the flashy highlights that fill a box score, but they were the gritty under pressure moments that kept Indiana alive.
Lob it in, Howard. Out to Hull. 6 to shoot. Hull banks it in.
The most dramatic moment came in the final seconds of regulation. With just 27 seconds left, Aaliyah Boston was hit with a foul that stunned everyone in the arena, sending her to the bench for good. Losing their star at that point should have been the end, but Indiana refused to fold. They dug deeper, pushed back, and somehow forced overtime. The energy in the gym wasn't about the Aces flexing their dominance. It was about the Fever's refusal to bow out. Overtime became pure survival. The rotation was thin, legs were heavy, but Indiana kept trading punches with Las Vegas. In the end, Chelsea Gray delivered the dagger buckets that closed the series for the Aces. Yet even in defeat, the spotlight wasn't on Vegas advancing. It was on Indiana, how they nearly pulled off the impossible with every obstacle stacked against them, and that set the stage for Stephanie White's powerful words after the game.
What did this team do that has changed the landscape, arguably, in basketball in Indiana?
Number one, they kept getting back up. Collectively. And I think that oftentimes in sport we see one that might, two that might. They kept getting back up collectively.
Why did Stephanie White's words after the game strike deeper than the final score? Because in that press conference, coming off the most exhausting, chaotic loss of the season, she gave Indiana more than just a recap of basketball. She took a night filled with fouls, collisions, and heartbreak and transformed it into a statement about identity, a message about who the Fever are and who they're becoming.
There's no circumstance that we went through on or off the floor, because we had some off the floor stuff too, that they blinked, that they held their heads down, that they didn't just stand tall and face head on.
Imagine the scene inside that locker room. Players with ice wrapped tight around their knees. Trainers working on bodies that had been pushed far beyond their limits. A silence that only comes after a loss decided by the thinnest of margins. The Fever had poured out every last ounce of energy, only to watch the season slip away by a single possession in overtime. Normally, that kind of defeat lingers for weeks. But when Stephanie White stepped to the podium, her voice didn't carry heartbreak. It carried a warning. She described her team as an absolute joy to coach. And it wasn't just a cliche to soften a loss. She praised their dignity. She praised their fight. She praised their unity. In a season where nearly every player had to wonder if it was even possible to keep moving forward, those words carried weight. Rather than dwelling on officiating or mistakes, White turned the focus to identity. She showed the world what this group had uncovered, something untouchable, the strength to stay together when everything else is falling apart.
You don't see a lot of that nowadays. I know I sound really old right now, but you just don't. And they continued to pour into one another. They continued to pour into us as coaches. They continued to allow us to push them on days and moments when they could have very easily just given up. They loved on us. They loved on one another. And it makes it really special when it sucks that it's over.
Those words hit home with her players. After the game, Lexi Hull talked about how battling through constant foul trouble and unpredictable rotations went beyond strategy. It was about pride. She described it as fuel, saying the Fever were proving they belonged, one possession at a time. That echoed exactly what Stephanie White had been preaching. This wasn't just a loss, it was the birth of a standard.
Impressive of a job did Stephanie do as coach with all the moving parts throughout the season?
I mean, incredible. Simply incredible. Be so easy to give up and say, we're just gonna take this year, we're gonna be a building year, we're gonna get better, set ourselves up for a good season next year. She came at us and said, and challenged us to continue to fight. So not every coach could do that, and not every coach could motivate a group to do that. And so just really special coach, really special person. And
even analysts began to recognize the shift. No longer did they see Indiana as a patched together roster that stumbled into contention. Instead, they started talking about a foundation being built. This wasn't some random hot streak. It was the early blueprint of a contender. With Caitlin Clark set to return, Kelsey Mitchell healthy and scoring, Aaliyah Boston anchoring the paint, Lexi Hull bringing grit, and Stephanie White leading from the sidelines, the pieces were taking shape. White's words weren't just post-game comments anymore. They were reshaping the entire narrative of the Fever's season.
It has been all about figuring it out. No matter what happens, what comes around the corner, figuring out the entire staff. I mean, seriously, they just did a tremendous job with adjustments the entire season. No matter what, someone went down, we needed a different action. Like, they were quick on their feet, and that's how they've been the entire season. And so tonight, when Kelsey goes down, no surprise. But I think it also goes to show our entire motto has been next woman up. And be ready, stay ready so you don't have to get ready. And I feel like that's exactly what happened tonight, and everyone was just ready when their name was called.
That's why her press conference carried weight. She wasn't simply addressing the aftermath of one tough night. She was laying out Indiana's long-term blueprint. Her message was clear. Those battle scars weren't wasted. They were proof of growth. To her players and to the rest of the league, it wasn't just pride, it was a warning. Don't expect the Fever to fade away. This is the turning point in every hero's story. Indiana will come back sharper, tougher, and more certain of who they are.
How soon do you start thinking about, okay, let's start thinking about next year?
Tomorrow.
I knew it. You could have held hands with that. I knew it.
This is what happens. When you're on the same wavelength, good things happen.
I knew it.
What's that mindset like you both have, and why are you already like, okay, that's happened, we're on to the next?
It's because you can't hold on to it. I mean, you just look at it, and obviously we're going to be watching the championship games, and that's going to be a feeling that we want to be in that next year. And that's going to be the mindset. Is already prepping. I told you, we're ready to go.
And we're competitors.
Exactly.
I mean, at the end of the day, like, this makes you hungry for more.
What do you call it when a team gets knocked out of the playoffs but somehow walks away with something even bigger? That's exactly what the Indiana Fever did in 2025. On the stat sheet, it's an elimination, a 5-game battle that ended with the 2-time champion Las Vegas Aces moving on. But in reality, it changed the way the entire league views Indiana. They left that floor in Las Vegas carrying a new identity, no longer an afterthought, no longer just a rebuilding project. They'd announced themselves as one of the WNBA's fastest rising powers. That's the paradox of their run. The series ended in defeat, but the fight they showed rewrote their reputation. Analysts pointed it out. Fans across the country felt it. Even rival players realized the Fever weren't chasing respect anymore. They were demanding it. They went on the road and knocked out Atlanta in a do-or-die game. They dragged the Aces into overtime in a winner-takes-all Game 5. And through it all, they proved resilience isn't just something they preach, it's who they are. This loss didn't end their season, it elevated it.
Yeah, I mean, this has been my best year. Seriously, I think with the people that we had in the locker room, the amount of fun that I had on the court, off the court, in the locker room, we just talked about how special this group was and how we're always going to be connected. And honestly, that's how I feel like these women became my sisters so quickly, and it was honestly just some of the best basketball I've had.
Then came Sophie Cunningham's fiery declaration, "We're coming for everybody next season." That wasn't just a headline grab, it was a warning shot, proof that if you line up against Indiana in 2026, you're not facing a rebuilding project, you're facing a squad intent on stepping into championship territory. And when you look at who's coming back, the statement makes perfect sense. Caitlin Clark, finally healthy, changes everything. Her vision, her shooting range, her ability to dictate an offense is unmatched. Aaliyah Boston holds down the paint, already one of the most dominant interior forces in the game. Kelsey Mitchell, who poured in over 23 points per game in the postseason before cramps sidelined her in Game 5, remains the scoring engine they can't live without. And Lexi Hull, the do-it-all glue piece, defends, rebounds, and sacrifices for the team in every way imaginable. That core four gives Indiana one of the most balanced, most dangerous young rosters in the entire league. One that's not just chasing contention, but built to stay there.
Are you assessing your growth year over year, and what are you looking forward to?
Yeah, honestly, I feel like I'm super proud of myself. Just like you said, adjusting and adapting. And for me, like, a championship's always on my mind. I think no matter what happens, like, obviously you hate losing, but you kind of started with your question with just the progression that it's been. And so for me, obviously, that's my mindset. We got a taste of it, Game 5 semifinals, and now we want the real thing. And that's honestly going to be our mindset coming in for next year. And I'm super excited going into this offseason. time to put a lot of work in. Just get ready to come.
The strength of this core isn't just about raw talent, it's about the culture Stephanie White has built. Her next woman up mentality has shaped an environment where every player counts, and no setback becomes an excuse. That mindset carried Indiana through 2025, and it's the same philosophy that positions them for an even bigger leap in 2026. The formula is simple but powerful. Keep building chemistry, stay rooted in the identity forged through adversity, and trust the resilience that has carried them this far. That's what championship blueprints are made of. Yes, Las Vegas advanced, but Indiana walked away with something far more valuable: validation, proof of who they are, and a glimpse of the future they're building. The Fever may not have left the floor with a trophy, but they earned something just as important: respect. They found their identity, and they showed the league that adversity doesn't break them, it fuels them. This run reminded Indiana fans that resilience is its own kind of victory. Through injuries, setbacks, and doubt, the Fever laid the foundation for titles still to come. And now the biggest question remains: is 2026 the year they finally turn heartbreak into triumph? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let us know how proud you are of this team. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a moment. Click the video on your screen and we'll see you in the next one.